Fake, that's what my friend on you. Broke you. Yeah, I think yeah, she scissor. She bought a chain, I bought the same one, even bigger. She throwing shots, that's how I know I got a trigger. I was big dog. I don't care what no say. I say on her mind, I got condos in that head. She said she don't fuck with me. Who say that you can't? Then munching, he gon' eat me like a mango. Long week, it be tickling my crack. Wonder what I do tomorrow that these will be mad at. Oh yeah, sweet, and I always get my lip wet. I got for my then I'm fighting over.
Can't say your name up in my songs, might not put you tomorrow. Can't get my feelings hurt today, I won't give tomorrow. If it's the band of credits though, I might be rich tomorrow. Every day the sun won't shine, but that's why I love tomorrow. Can't say your name up in my songs, might not put you tomorrow. Can't get my feelings hurt today, I won't give tomorrow. If it's the band of credits though.
Educated women, it wasn't the overwhelming win that we thought it was going to be or that was projected in some of these very prominent surveys. And when you think about the fact that there were some people, I didn't think we were going to win Iowa, but that we had seen surveys where he was only up 5 in Kansas or up 3 in Ohio. It's going to take a lot of refocusing to understand really what happened here. And it doesn't seem like it was one decision that the Harris campaign did. I'm sure if she loses Pennsylvania, there'll be a lot of Josh Shapiro discussion. This feels much bigger than any decision about having him on the ticket or going to the Al Smith dinner.
So, Carl, when Jessica just brought up a potential for 150,000 votes in Philadelphia County, I saw your head kind of swing around. Does that not make sense to you?
Well, no. I mean, we're pretty good at saying 89% of the vote is in, or 95% of the vote is in, and that not turning out to be, that turns out to be accurate. It's very rare. I can't imagine in one instance where we've said, where we've looked at a number and seen 90% of the vote in or 85% of the vote in, and that turned out to be grossly off. I will say this, though. I did want to follow up on one thing. Think about all that she had to face. This is an abysmal number when it comes to the approval of the sitting president. No party has elected a president when they're sitting incumbent. Relatively small difference between these two people. Look at Pennsylvania, 50.9 to 48.1. And yet at the end of the day, a series of victories that are 1 and 2 and 3 points are going to generate a commanding number in the Electoral College that will help the new president again, if it all goes like it looks like it's going, to be more effective in office.
Harold Ford, are there going to be Biden people that say he could have been better?
Like, you know, I think it's hard to make that case for some of the reasons that I think Britta and Carl have made the point. I think three things. I listen to Sandra's data. I'm curious, as we get a day or so away from this, as we look at what happened with the performance amongst women for her. Did she win African American women, Hispanic women, white women at a bigger rate? Were there disparities between the two? And then the race thing for me, I'm going to be curious also to get more. We heard that the numbers around Hispanic voters, but even black voters where that might be. And interestingly, Carl, normally you see a race where, in the country where the cultural issues impact, as you were talking about the suburban areas, in some places he wasn't performing, and you see the suburban.
Please welcome Harris for President campaign co-chair Cedric Richmond.
Good evening, Howard. Good evening, HU. I want to say good evening to all of the Harris campaign, the campaign family. Thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in the promise of America. We still have votes to count. We still have states that have not been called yet. We will continue overnight to fight to make sure that every vote is counted, that every voice has spoken. So you won't hear from the Vice President tonight, but you will hear from her tomorrow. She will be back here tomorrow to address not only the HU family, not only to address her supporters, but to address the nation. So thank you. We believe in you. May God bless you. May God keep you. And go HU and go Harris. Thank you all.
campaign in Kent County, Grand Rapids. He did it again in 2020 in a losing effort. He did it again just this past weekend, Monday night at midnight, right? He rolled into, wow. Yeah, he rolled into Florida at 5:30 in the morning. That was yesterday morning. No, it wasn't. It was this morning, wasn't it? Right. Because it was Wednesday, right? Okay, you follow me on the calendar? Okay, yeah, okay. But it's been stubborn. It appears that it will stick that way as well. Kent County and Grand Rapids will stay in the blue column. It's a changing area, you know, this west coast of Michigan. But what I'm seeing right now, even though you'll have just about 60% of the vote in, I'm seeing a lot of red lining up and down Lake Michigan. And for a while, you know, that had changed. It seemed to be shifting a little bit. There's a county right here called Muskegon, beautiful part of the world. And that had seemed to be drifting in the Democratic column as well. But Trump's got a firm grip on it now, 16 points. And I'll just go west of Muskegon, or sorry, south of Muskegon, west of Grand Rapids, is Ottawa County there. Like for years, this was like a Republican bastion. Trump kept it that way in 2020, winning by 21.5 points. In 2016, in Ottawa specifically, you ran away with it at 30 points. And so it will stay that way tonight. And let me just come out to real-time data here and let you know where we are statewide. You've got some vote out there, but you see this margin here yet again. Just as I'm talking here, guys, it's ticking higher. 210,967, 6.3 percentage point lead in Michigan. I'm not going to say it because it's not my job, but it looks like the blue wall could stay intact yet again for another year where it votes in unison with the winning party who takes the White House that year.
Since 1988, that has held.
I think we're getting ready for a call.
I think we are too. Are we?
Fox News can now project that the state of Georgia will go to former President Donald Trump. This was a really hard-fought battle. If you think about Georgia loses it last time to President Biden by 11,779 votes. For some reason, that number sticks in my mind. And this is a big win. He went there, campaigned there, and so did Vice President Harris numerous times, thinking that Georgia could stay in the Democratic column.
You know, he had a difficult relationship with Governor Brian Kemp. If you remember, 4 years ago, after losing Georgia, they tried to salvage 2 Senate races in Georgia. A month later, special elections. That didn't go well either. So this is a very big win for former President Trump to, you know, have this redemption in Georgia tonight.
So now we are at electoral college vote, 248 for Trump and 216 for Harris. We have a panel. We're welcoming in Darren Shaw, a member of the Fox News Decision Desk. Welcome in Juan Williams as well, along with Karl Rove. Darren, I got you out here. We were going to say, what happened? Are we calling Georgia? And then you push the button.
Are you here to tell us that we were right when we said you called Georgia?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I thought you were going to come down here to grill me, and we preempted that.
What else are we going to call?
You guys called Georgia in the nick of time for you, Darren.
That's exactly right.
While we have you, how do you see this night? And was it like you thought going in? And as you look at the blue wall there?
Well, I think 2 things. This is an election that is unprecedented by my standards because the more data I saw, the more possibilities seemed to unfold. There was stuff a couple weeks ago I didn't think could happen. I didn't think Trump could win, let's say, the national vote. I'm not saying he's going to, but that was something that nobody thought could happen. They thought he was capped at 47, 48%. That's a possibility. We had a lot of conversations about whether these, swing states were going to move together or whether they were going to sort of crack and each move separately. There's a possibility tonight that, I didn't think this would happen earlier in the afternoon, but that he could sweep all of them. That's not a prediction, but it's something that's within the realm of possibility with the data we've seen.
You're saying blue wall turns into a red wall?
It's possible. And that wasn't something anybody was talking about. People talk about Michigan in particular as being the toughest state for Trump to crack. Now, Bill showed the data recently. We've been looking at it for hours. Michigan's looking very difficult for her right now.
All these toss-up states have been within a point or 2. So is there any way to look at what you see now and say this could be a win in a larger percentage than that? I mean, a lot of these states are still close, but...
Right. What we're looking at right now, we have sort of model data, and we're looking to reach a certain level of statistical significance to make a call. But we're also looking at what we call the outstanding vote. And so, for instance, in the case of Georgia, we were modeling about 835,000 outstanding votes. A lion's share of them were coming from suburban Atlanta. You know, she needed to hit about 55, 56%. She was getting about 45%. And at a certain level, that becomes a statistical impossibility. You know, the more data you get, the less room she has to actually grow or do better than she's been performing. And so that sort of triggered the call in Georgia. We're not quite there yet in the other states, but this may not be an election where we need to be here till Thursday or Friday.
Right. And so when they say go home, relax, you're saying maybe not yet.
We'll see if they, continue to count. Arizona and Nevada have been particularly stubborn about that. We understand in Nevada they don't allow any counting until the last vote has been cast, which is, we think, why we're getting basically nothing from Nevada so far. Yeah. But Arizona, it's coming in sort of droves. It's a close race there. Wisconsin and Michigan. Michigan seems to be counting there like 54, 55%. Wisconsin at 2 a.m. in 2020 had counted 99% of the votes. So we think there's a chance we might have enough data in Wisconsin, maybe Michigan. So we may have some resolution more quickly than we thought.
So in Pennsylvania, Sean talked about this earlier, the early vote and what that looked like and what she would have to do day of in Philadelphia and those counties right around there. Is it possible that that's still out there and it's possible to do?
Boy, it seems to be a probability diminishing by the hour. I think this is something from the Georgia data, but we've also seen it in Pennsylvania. Young African-American men did not come home. Part of the African-American vote came home to her, but a lot of it didn't, and there's a gender gap there. And the Georgia, I think, I have to run the numbers, and I'm not going to lay this at the feet of any demographic group in particular, but she really did seem to underachieve amongst African-American males, especially young African-American males.
I mean, it just makes me think about Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, the former president, and the very strong appeals that they made. Michelle Obama said, don't let your husband or boyfriend's rage dictate your vote. President Obama talked about bringing out brothers and scolding them. That does not seem to have been a strategy that worked.
Darren, did the Fox News voter analysis track with what you saw with raw vote as you went around the states?
Yes. There were a couple. What we're doing early on is we get this early vote from Indiana and Kentucky. It allows us to kind of figure out, is the FNVA performing consistent with the data? There were a couple states where Trump overperformed a bit. Florida was one. We were a little concerned that we might be overestimating Trump's performance in rural areas. But the more data we got, the more that didn't seem to be the case. It seemed like he was basically hitting what we thought he would hit.
We've got the brain here. Did anybody else have a question for Darren?
I'm curious about immigration and what you've seen in terms of how much that played into the votes in some of these states.
Well, I think the one thing we can say is that it didn't repel people. In particular, there was some talk about the Hispanic vote coming home over the issue of immigration. That did not seem to happen much at all. The FNVA suggested, I think it was 40% was Trump's performance amongst Latinos. That ended up being, I think, within 13 or 14 points of Harris's. I mean, if you'd showed me data before the election and said, that he's going to get 15% of the African-American vote, 40% of the Hispanic vote, I'd say that's an awfully tough night for a Democrat to win an election.
There's some reporting that Trump has won Erie County, Pennsylvania. Is that square with anything you understand?
I think it was on sort of a knife's edge. I don't know if Bill's got the latest data, but
it was a joke here.
It's part of her hope, right?
Went back to the Trump team, and right now, currently, just to keep you guys up to date, he leads it by a point in 1.4, which is a little less than 2,000 raw votes.
And it's 99%
left out. How much is it? 99% in, or 90? What did you say?
90%, statewide 90%. Darren, I got a question for you. When you think about the blue wall in the upper Midwest, when we were at the convention in Milwaukee in July, it ended on a Thursday. On a Friday, we had that national computer glitch, and all the airports were shut down. So all the delegates and all the journalists and all the campaign folks were stranded at the airport in Milwaukee. And I was still thinking at the time about, why did I just see Kid Rock? And why did I see Hulk Hogan? And why did I see Dana White? And I went to the campaign, and I said, what's going on there? Because it was men. It was white men. And they said, we notice in the upper Midwest, at the time they were thinking about Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio to a lesser degree, and Pennsylvania. That's what they were thinking about. And they said, we noticed that there was a certain percentage of white men who voted in 2016. They sat out 2020, and we're trying to win them back. Is there evidence that those white males in those upper Midwest states did that tonight?
There was sort of a rule of thumb we were adopting that, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier in conversation with y'all, but that, you know, the gender gap is a double-edged sword. The gender gap can help or hurt depending upon, you know, the absolute level of support. We were looking at 55%. In other words, if Trump was hitting 55% with men, that was a good sign. If Harris was hitting 55% with women, that was a good sign. And in the upper Midwest states, he was getting closer to that sort of magic number than she was. So what you call it the bro strategy or whatever, it seems to have paid some dividends up there. I mean, we're still waiting, but you know, it's looking pretty good for him.
So we can definitively say that the poll that we don't talk about in Iowa was kind of off. The ballot registry.
I love Ann Seltzer. She's a giant and a pioneer in our field. I think, you know, what we were looking at, ironically, was not so much the top line in that race, but what Seltzer had said was that senior women were breaking away from Trump over the abortion issue. And I think our friend Sean Trende had a really good observation where he said that may be true, but it may not help Harris, because that's something that could occur in Iowa where abortion was a hot issue, but might not occur nationally in other states where abortion wasn't as salient.
We have to let you go, but really quickly, what's happening in Minnesota?
That's what I was going to answer, that question.
Minnesota, why is that still?
They have done what sometimes they do in states. They've stopped counting votes.
Really?
And we're kind of close to...
After all we've been through with that?
After all we've been through?
We're at a level where we're close to statistical significance, but it's not quite there yet, and there are still...
Tim Walz in charge of that?
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
rumor has it.
We have to let you go because you have some more data crunching to do. We appreciate you coming
Thank you,
by.
Darren.
Thanks,
Really
Darren.
does help a lot.
Coming
Good job.
by.
Thank you. Very nice to see you guys. Thank you.
Let's check in with Aisha Hosni at the
Let's
Trump
do that.
campaign headquarters. Aisha?
Hey, you guys. Well, all signs here are pointing to perhaps imminent remarks from the former president shortly. The biggest dead giveaway was a short while ago. Somebody went onto the stage right behind me and put up the glass for the teleprompter. So perhaps somebody will be speaking to the crowd here shortly, and that might be the former president. We've got eyes outside, our security details outside watching to see if the motorcade arrives from Mar-a-Lago. I did get a video from someone at the Mar-a-Lago party a short while ago, and folks there were jubilant and cheering and clapping. They had Fox News on the screen. They were watching as we were calling states and more races for the former president. The excitement here is climbing every minute, and people here are anxiously awaiting to see if the former president shows up here tonight and perhaps gives a victory speech. Back to you.
Oh, Aisha, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Cough drop or-
Head back there. If the former President Trump is about to take the stand and speak there. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. 1 a.m. in New York. Polls have just closed in Alaska. The Fox News decision desk says it is too early to call. Trump has a lead in our Fox News voter analysis, so we will get you back to Alaska when we have a little more data to report there.
And there you see 248 to 216, the Electoral College map. We are waiting on the blue wall, which could be a red wall. You just heard from Darren Shaw. I think that data and the way he laid it out there and their decision making really kind of lifts the curtain to how these guys operate based on our Fox News voter analysis, which again was 120,000 voters, that a rolling poll, and then the raw vote total that they came in. Alex Hoff is in Pennsylvania. We'll check in on the ground there. Alexandria.
Hey, good to be with you. Yeah, the crowd here in Bucks County, they are excited by some trends they are seeing, not necessarily expecting to result tonight, Pennsylvania's results, and the count is historically slow. It took 4 days in 2020, but the Commonwealth Secretary does believe that it's going to be faster this time. New technology, more training will come into all this. Now, looking at Philadelphia, both the Trump and the Harris campaigns, they're saying they're outperforming there, but Team Trump feels that this could be good news for them because there are pockets of support inside of South Philadelphia, Northeast Philadelphia, and there is a saying that goes that Republicans can gauge how well they are doing in the state by how much they are losing Philadelphia by. Simply, it cuts into the margins that Democrats need. And here in Bucks County, they're seeing themselves on the screen right now. It means a lot. If he were to win this county, Bucks County, I mean, that would be the first time a Republican presidential candidate has taken this county since 1988. And these suburbs of Philadelphia, this is what pushed Biden over the edge in 2020. Harris needs to do well in these counties if she stands to have a chance of taking the state, guys. Brett, Martha?
Alex, thank you. So let's go to Bill and see, what are you cooking up over there, Bill?
You know, I was just looking at New York. You know, we heard so much about MSG and the insult comic about the Puerto Rican joke. And, you know, Trump, you know, New York's his home, right? I'm now living in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. But just look at this. I'm going to go ahead and use the slide bar and just, okay, 8 years ago when he's running against Hillary Clinton, this is his margin in New York, all right? 37.5 compared to almost 59 for Hillary Clinton. And then against Joe Biden, it was, what? Was it? Oh my gosh. It was 0.3 of a point, all right? And now we come to 2020 and see the numbers on the board here. That's a pretty decent performance. And we're just getting some insight here in the New York City. He did well over 40% of the vote here in New York as well. One thing I was checking out here, guys, in this is the number, right? Path to 270. I guess in theory right now, if you were to close out, you know, you're at 248. If you were to close out Pennsylvania, and even though Alaska has ranked choice voting, which could take a while to post a number here, nonetheless, that would put him right at the number 270. So even around the blue wall, it's possible too. That goes back to the argument that we've been talking about for some time now, that Trump had more paths to the Oval Office than Harris did. Let's go check on Pennsylvania one more time here, and we'll see. Okay, it's holding steady at 3.5. 90% of the estimated vote out there is now reporting here. In Michigan, you know, the blue wall, 6.3, so that number is stuck a little bit here. Estimated somewhere, maybe 40% of the vote still missing there in Michigan and Wisconsin. You know, maybe we get some more numbers in. It got 85% of the vote in here. And, you know, Trump's holding on to this 4.2 advantage in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin, they take a lot of pride in what they do. They want to get the vote out quickly. Maybe Milwaukee notwithstanding, but the rest of the state, you know, that's their idea. So we could get that in maybe a little more as we go into what, the 2 a.m. hour? Are we going to 2 a.m. or 3? What are we doing here? Arizona sticking here at 0.7. What's that?
Just keep going.
Okay, you got it. This is Nevada, so we're starting to get our first numbers in from Nevada. For any of the nerds and geeks out there that have been deep in the weeds about the early voting, you've been watching Nevada. And Nevada's been a pretty good marker there for Republicans. This is a quick count here now. It's saying 75% of the vote is in, and Trump's got a firm lead at 3.4 points, roughly, just a tad under 35,000 votes. Clark County, Las Vegas, 70% of the votes in the Silver State here all come from Nevada. Let's see what's happening right now. Okay, Harris, just a tick over 50.2 with 80%. I want to go comparison's sake, 8 years ago, why not, right? In Nevada, I don't know what this number is. We'll find out together, okay? So Hillary Clinton did 2 points better than Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden, okay, did even better, you know, 3.5 over what Kamala Harris is putting up right now. So it appears if you're in the Trump camp, that's a pretty good number right now, just shy of 51% in Nevada early on. Here's Carl Rowe's favorite place in the world. This is Washoe County, right, Carl? Right now, a point, it's close, right? 0.2 points. You know, what happened with Biden? Was it close? Yeah, pretty close, but Biden won the county. So in all likelihood, Trump's got a chance to flip this if it holds up right now. Super slim and more vote to come in, but Nevada is looking good too. And now you start to wonder, you know, how high does this number go on the Electoral College?
Yeah, New York Times needle is now at greater than 95% and likely to win the popular vote is what they have. Well, let's check in. Let's go out to Vegas. Jeff Ball is live in Las Vegas. Jeff, what's happening?
Well, a lot of excitement here and optimism at the Sam Brown watch party. He's, of course, the Republican candidate trying to unseat the Democratic incumbent Senator Jackie Rosen. And just a few moments ago, when Bill was talking about Nevada, you heard a lot of cheers here from the crowd at the Sam Brown watch party, just knowing some of those initial numbers. It took nearly 3 hours to finally get some of those numbers. We're hoping to get another batch in the coming hours, but Nevada has an interesting law where it's, you can vote right up until the 7 o'clock hour, and if you're in line, they'll let you vote, and in order to release those results, they wait until the very last person in line votes. That person, it took 2 hours and 48 minutes, so still a very long night ahead of us, but for the folks here at the Sam Brown watch party, a lot of optimism in the air.
All right, Jeff Ball in Las Vegas. Jeff, thanks.
So our panel is still with us, and we have some new folks that are here as well. Kevin McCarthy is joining us. Karl Rove is back. Juan Williams is here. Great to have all of you with us. Kevin McCarthy, let me start with you. Give us an update on what your overall take on the night so far, and then maybe drill down on some of what you're seeing in these House situations as well.
The Senate Republicans did an extraordinary job. They surpassed all expectations. President Trump is on his way. And I think President Trump is going to help the Republicans hold the House, but it's going to be very narrow, maybe even narrower than we have.
But you think they could do it?
Maybe even narrower than you have now, you said.
Yeah, it may be exactly the same or maybe smaller. Look at the 2 seats I said at the very beginning of the night. Watch Pennsylvania 7 and Pennsylvania 8. I think we're going to pick those both up. You said North Carolina 1. We're probably going to lose that by 1 point. She did an extraordinary job.
Wow.
Then you look at Maine. We're ahead there. But we have some incumbents that have fallen in New York. California's just in now, but don't read those numbers yet because it's just the first part coming in. We're going to have to wait some time to see where we're there. Arizona, we've got a couple incumbents in trouble. Bacon's coming back in Omaha, maybe there. If we hold the House, if this is a trifecta, the credit goes to President Trump. But it also fundamentally means something different. You could do reconciliation when it comes to tax reform. So you don't need 60 votes in the Senate. Having the Senate as large as he is, he's going to get the cabinet that he wants. The other thing that's going to happen is you're not going to have a Hakeem Jeffries that's going to try to impeach him every single week. So America's going to see ability to govern. And if Republicans take this moment in time to not play games and focus on the issues, they can grow it the next time. Otherwise, it's going to be very competitive in 2 years.
But Juan Williams, if it's as big as we think it could be, we obviously haven't made these calls yet, but it's trending that way, and the pathway for her to win is getting narrower and narrower. Isn't it not a mandate? And Hakeem Jeffries and the thought of impeaching with what we're seeing tonight seems like wouldn't be the right move.
Well, I think the Democrats are, well, dispirited at this moment, and I think that the likelihood, as we've pointed out, is that Trump will be the president. And I think that, for me, talking to people like Darren and political professionals around, no one anticipated the size of this mandate, as you call it. I think that there is even recriminations now among Democrats as to Biden and whether Biden should have dropped out earlier or Biden should have stayed. Would a white male have done better? Obviously, Trump has defeated 2 women and now a black woman. So there's all of these questions. But to my mind, it seems to me incredible that a guy who led an insurrection against the United States government is going potentially now, like a phoenix, going back into the Oval Office. It's unbelievable.
Well, you have to consider the fact, Juan, that a lot of people didn't think that was an insurrection. They thought it was a riot, but not an insurrection. And had they thought it was really an insurrection, I don't think he could have won.
Well, I don't know.
Exaggerations about that day.
Well, I'm not exaggerating.
About the alleged threat to democracy is a piece of what happened tonight.
Well, I don't think so. I think, again, I'm giving you my perspective.
And I'm giving you mine.
Right, so I listened to you as my friend. But I'm going to tell you what I saw was not only a right in terms of the violence, but a direct action intended to stop certification of a presidential election.
Understood. And we've talked a lot about it.
That's why I said that.
And we've talked a lot about it.
The campaign, clearly. I'm not trying to hype anything.
The campaign ran a lot of ads about it, talked a lot about it, and more, half the country now, Juan is going to say, that is not what I care about. I care about my economy. I care about immigration.
No, see, that's where we differ. I'm not sold on this idea that, oh, it was the cost of eggs. I worry that it was, well, I'm not voting for this woman, or I'm not voting for this black woman.
No, that's not what we see in our data.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you see that? Because a moment ago, Darren was out here and he said, in fact, not only did the bro strategy work, and the bro strategy largely worked along the lines of white men, but that the bro strategy also had some impact in terms of Latino and black men who came along and gave higher percentages.
All right, Carl, weigh in.
I just want to make one more point with one. I spoke to Jack Brewer this week, and here's what he said if Trump wins. He said he won because black men felt that Democrats and elites put immigrants before us. Your thoughts on that?
I just think that that's possible. I don't know that for a fact. I think there are tensions between racial groups, and people might feel that. Obviously, you can exploit those tensions, and you can exacerbate them to the point where you can politically benefit from it. Do I think that's the reason he won? No. I think the reason he won is you look at that bro strategy and the white male turnout and white grievance politics that he has used to great success in this country.
I think he's trailing him on trailing his prior 2020 numbers with whites.
Well, you know what? I think that the bros,
Hispanics and black males.
Yeah.
It's not sufficient to make up. It's not sufficient to have this kind of night.
I just think it is extremely odd to suggest that black men are somehow prejudiced because they vote for a white candidate who says, I want to make certain that everybody has an opportunity to succeed in our great economy. I want you to be more prosperous, and I will do things that will make it possible for you to make a better life. That is an appeal to their best instincts. He did not go out and say, vote for me because I'm not a woman. Don't go vote for me because I'm a white man. That would not have attracted those votes. They got attracted to him because they thought he was a strong, effective leader, and they thought he would do something about the issues they cared the most about, which is an economy in which they think they get the short stick, inflation, which has decimated their purchasing power, and illegal immigration, which has affected their communities deeply. And to suggest that somehow black men are racist because they supported a white man is just too far, Juan.
You're distorting my comments, but let me just say...
I followed your comment to its logical conclusion.
Carl, hold on. We're not saying most black men did not vote for Donald Trump. So I never said anything like that. That's just not true.
Oh, you suggested it's only
I'm saying to you, no, I'm saying to you that in terms of this bro strategy for white males, the whole notion of I'm bad, I talk about women in the most disparaging way. There's some men who just said, you know what, I get into, I want to be in on that. I want to be a badass guy. And I think they like Trump's image and the character.
I think they supported him in spite of that, not because of it.
Harold Ford Jr.
Because we offered to make their life better.
Harold Ford Jr.
Okay. I tend to agree with Juan about January 6th. I'm surprised by the fact that the country got over that as quickly as we seemingly did, which speaks to the political comeback. I've said here earlier, I think that the fact that some of these issues around the economy and the border were not addressed more forthrightly, I think had an impact. That being said, we're going to have some analysis around this and around whether or not the driving up support amongst men, what was behind that, how did it work, did the gender gap with women, did black women, white women, Hispanic women? We still don't know those numbers. We'll have an opportunity to dig into some of those things, but I don't interpret what Juan is saying any more than that.
All right, more to talk about here.
There's a lot more coming up as election night moves on at 1:15 on the East Coast. We continue to get more vote in. We will be able to make some calls when that vote is in full. Our coverage continues next. Stay with us.
watching the sun bake. All of those tourists covered with oil, strumming my six string on my front porch swing. Smell those shrimp, they're beginning to boil. Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know it's nobody's fault. Don't know the reason, stayed here all season. Nothing to show but this.
Movement from the Mar-a-Lago Trump group, including former President Trump, who is in a very good position to be the next president this evening as well, is heading over to the Trump headquarters, where there are a few thousand people who have gathered for this evening. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Obviously, when he shows up there, we will take you there live.
One of those guys had two Make America Great hats on.
I saw someone with a really large one. Yeah.
As we look now at what we have, Pennsylvania. Is this a call, ladies and gentlemen? We are now projected that Donald J. Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania. Former President Donald J. Trump. Will win the state of Pennsylvania, and we can make that call. The 19 electoral votes. That puts him at 267, now officially over the 270. But the path that it takes to get to 270, he is well on his way to becoming the 47th president of the United States in what is going to be the biggest political phoenix from the ashes story that we have ever seen. Ever. I mean, I'm going to say it's more than Grover Cleveland in 1892.
Grover Cleveland was not the subject of a Russia investigation, 2 impeachments, 2 assassination attempts. They have indictments, 91 indictments, convictions, and there is almost nothing that hasn't been thrown at this former president, and his tenacity in wanting to go back and run again, which he announced immediately after he lost in 2020. This is a huge historic moment in the United States of America, as the former President Trump is closing in with just a few electoral votes away now from clinching 270, as Pennsylvania is called for Donald Trump.
We're looking live, 1:21 a.m. in the morning at Trump headquarters. The cheers coming up. We're told the former president is there, as well as J.D. Vance, Senator J.D. Vance. They are getting ready to hear from former President Donald Trump. Again, at 267, not there yet, but looking at where that vote is in Wisconsin, where the vote is in Michigan, where the vote is in Nevada and in Arizona. There is no path, Britt Hume, for Vice President Harris, and just 30,000 feet. What this means.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when Richard Nixon was declared dead in 1962. Remember the famous speech he said, "We don't have Nixon to kick around anymore." No one could imagine after that failed race for governor, he could have come back in 1968 and become president. That was a hell of a comeback. This, to my eye, was a man who was facing many more slings and arrows than Nixon had there at that time, hated though he was by the Democrats. This surmounts that. This is an extraordinary comeback.
Dan.
He campaigned so energetically, ruthlessly, fiercely, and with more joy than Kamala Harris. And it was so clear that Joe Biden was not going to be able to go the distance. If Joe Biden were still on the ticket tonight, who knows what tonight might have even looked like. That he has been able to accomplish this, it is nothing short of astonishing and amazing. And also I think about Susie Wiles, who's his campaign manager, very quiet, does not like the limelight. Chris LaCivita, who works on it. All of those people who worked so hard and stuck by Trump, no matter what was said about him, they were called every name in the book, including Hitler and Nazis, and they came through. The other thing that's on my mind is, you know, last night at her closing rally, Oprah Winfrey said that if Donald Trump is elected again, basically you can just write America off, like America's just gonna fall apart. That's obviously not true, although I'll be surprised tomorrow if there's a big line at JFK of Hollywood celebrities leaving the country, as I said they were going to. This is the greatest country, and there will be so many opportunities for lots of deal making. I think President Trump will be in the mood, but he also has a huge to-do list. Biden and Harris have left a mess. His closing argument was, she broke it, I will fix it. And she talked about having a to-do list. He's got a big to-do list, but he thrives on it. And you saw that through the whole campaign.
He is, I think, enthusiastic about doing the job of being President Harold, and it is just an absolutely remarkable. I think if you wrote this as a movie script, people would say this could never happen in the United States of America.
He's a single, I've said this before, he's the single greatest political athlete I've ever seen. And tonight he proved why. There were moments in the campaign where I thought he would said some things and did some things that I didn't quite understand, that I thought maybe detracted from it. But tonight obviously proves that too. He also ran a traditional campaign. He connected with voters on issues. He talked about the things that mattered most to voters. And Democrats said he didn't talk about it in the most full-throated way, he didn't talk about it in the most wholesome way, didn't talk about it in the most comprehensive way, but he connected with voters. I would urge my party tonight, if indeed I think he's almost at 270, we'll declare here shortly once Alaska comes in, don't write off the American people. Let us not be critical of people for voting for President Trump. He did something we didn't do in this campaign. We had to reevaluate, reassess. Mr. Wonderful said it a little earlier, that may give us an opportunity as a party to revamp, and perhaps we should think about that. But don't write off the people, the American people, for the decision they made this evening.
Charlie Hurd, he will be the 47th president of the United States after everything that we saw in this election. It's hard to understand how some in the mainstream media are going to take this, because it was so over the top one way that they thought it was done. There was a landslide prediction from a lot in the media that she was going to have the landslide. It looks like he's going to have the landslide tonight.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable. And, you know, the revolution rolls on. And this is not just, a victory for the White House tonight, but also, this is the end of the old Republican Party, which, of course, Donald Trump took on. That was the first thing that he did. The very first thing that he did in 2015 was take on the old Republican Party. He has completely reshaped the Republican Party. The Republican Party is no longer doesn't stand for a lot of things that it stood for before. He has made it a far more middle class, working class, a far more practical party, I think probably a far more durable party. And he's figured out how to win with that. And you can't help but think that with this victory, in 4 years from now, he's going to have the mantle that he can hand to the next Republican. So I don't know how Republicans ever go back to the old party that they were. But it is truly extraordinary, and it is all by the force of one guy, one man who had the fortitude, the strength, the vision, the refusal to accept anything, all of the experts counting him out, and he just kept on fighting.
Charlie, it would have been one thing for him to come back from a single defeat to be elected again. But when you think about it, he came back from a series of them. I mean, his party lost in the midterm in his
2018.
They lost in 2018. They lost the presidential election in 2020, and they had a major disappointment in 2022, which one might have thought after all that the party wouldn't turn to him again, and yet in the face of that, plus all the things that Martha enumerated, the indictments, all the other troubles that he had, for him to come back from that is really quite striking.
And think about how toxic he was after, say, January 6th.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at races now in states where Donald Trump very well may drag Republicans, and he's overperforming in a lot of places fellow Republicans.
It really does. I think there are parallels to 1980, Mark Penn. When you look at Jimmy Carter, we had hostages in Iran, we have hostages in Gaza right now, very high inflation and a malaise in many ways in the country that I think these people who have been called a lot of names have had enough of. What is your impression of what this means tonight?
Well, I think this means a lot to a lot of people. I think the working class are looking for a renewal of American jobs. I think people are looking for a border that is sane and an immigration system that works. I think a lot of people over in the Middle East are looking for Iran to pull back in the face of a president whom they fear. And, look, I think it's going to be incumbent on the Democratic Party to understand that the people have spoken, and to dissemble and dismantle this lawfare system that they have built up here, which is going to raise a whole series of questions that are going to have to be answered now. But they cannot say that they are better than Donald Trump and recreate a system that does not recognize that he won and the people have spoken, and he is going to be the 47th president.
We haven't talked about foreign policy a lot, but imagine the Saudis, making a normalization deal with Israel in the face of a new president here. Imagine
I'm going there tomorrow night.
Imagine a Ukraine deal that Donald Trump talks about. Kevin O'Leary, what is the market going to do in the wake of this?
What's happened here is the system self-corrected. When you try and break the American model, it fixes itself. And I think people should give credit within the Democratic Party. Donald Trump saved them tonight too, because they're going to have to take a spatula to these policies and bring it back to the center over the next 4 years, and in a way reset. And we talked about this earlier, but he saved entrepreneurship. He saved the entire model of the S&P 500, because taxing 20% higher was a really bad idea, and it self-corrected. Capital, and this is why I'm getting on a plane tomorrow night. I intentionally didn't leave till tomorrow night so I could go to Geneva, go to Abu Dhabi, go to Riyadh, and say it's 21% corporate taxes, 100% not going to change. That is very important for people like me that bring capital back to this country. It fixed itself. It fixed itself. And I think that's why America works. It has worked for 200 years. When it gets too crazy, it fixes itself. And whether you love Trump or you hate him, every Democrat owes him a thank you very much, Mr. President.
By the way, as the markets, the poly market and all these election markets were moving, Bitcoin went up exponentially.
Yes, I'm long Bitcoin.
Are you? So you're buying later.
Speaking of Bitcoin, I'm also struck by just calling Pennsylvania here, Dana. Trump embraced Elon Musk in an enormous way. A lot of stories were written that said that he was going to blow it in Pennsylvania, that the people who were working on his outreach teams didn't know what they were doing. He's going to
And he got a lot of criticism. Remember the $1 million giveaway for registered voters? But of course, we follow, and we've had on the show many times, and she knows that area very well. She said the people of that region love somebody who is a big thinker, who wants to create jobs, who is like looking into the future, and they can get behind that. And they love somebody who can really lead. And leadership takes courage. And you have to be willing to make decisions where you are going to be criticized. I think this is one of the problems that Kamala Harris has always had. She doesn't want to take a position on anything. We haven't even talked about how in California, basically make shoplifting illegal again. Passed overwhelmingly. And Gascon, our friend down, the DA in Los Angeles, lost by 22 votes. I mean, this is in California, so it was everywhere. And she wouldn't even take a position on that. 75% of the people in California wanted it gone, and you can't take a position to be with them?
Not only that, you were part of Prop 47, which changed the law the other way.
So not wanting to take a position and not being willing to be criticized is a problem if you want to be a leader at that level.
She had that affliction in 2020. Why didn't her own party say candidate? I mean, run a process.
Well, they did. They ran her out of town right before any votes were cast in 2019.
But the same affliction
out of there.
hit her here. The same problem she had in 2020 hit her in 2024.
She's the same person.
I mean, it's not all her fault. They put her in a race that she, well, we now know couldn't win.
Yeah.
But Karen, in fairness to Democrats, there's no doubt. I agree with you on unrealized capital gains. We shouldn't be taxing that. But we produce more wealth, more innovation, more oil, more cures, more therapeutics over the last 3 years. So I hear you. Democrats are not bad for the economy. Some things she proposed that I'm with you on. But we're a great country, and we're going to continue to be great. And I trust and hope and believe that President
Your party will be great again.
I want the
and you can thank Donald Trump for that.
But he inherited an economy also that was in pretty good shape. I don't want to quarrel about that. All I want is going forward. I agree with you. I want the country to be great, and I hope that both of the parties can work together to try and do that. And I salute President Trump tonight. What a great win, and I agree with you in this regard. My party's got to reimagine and reinvent itself going forward.
Listen, I wrote about this, the unity and
you did.
Past presidents and past losers and winners and what they said. This is a big speech, Britt, for former President Trump. As he gets ready to deliver this in front of a crowd, he's obviously taken the slings and arrows and everything that's been said, the fascism, all of the things we talked about tonight. But this moment is actually a moment to reach out.
It's an opportunity for many people are alive to hear. But
they're there. And he's definitely.
A lot of people are still up.
The question is, how much is the national TV audience?
I bet they're still in.
You know, I think back at the moment in Iowa, at the beginning of this process, Brett, when we went to a town hall with him, bless you, Brett, and he, you know, we asked him about all of this revenge stuff and that he was going to want retribution, and this is what everyone heard. And there were times when he had language that was that matched that, but he said that he wanted success to be his revenge, and that he wanted a successful America. And I would imagine that we're going to hear something along those lines.
In your piece, you quoted one of those great old Republican presidents, H.W. Bush, who said that a campaign is a disagreement and an election is a decision. And decisions clear the way for harmony and peace. You know,
listen, there are a lot of Thanksgiving tables that people are still going to have hard feelings after this election, more than any other election.
I have one of them.
And if you passing the Brussels sprouts is Thanksgiving Day, but this is a chance to move forward, Rick. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that one thing that can happen here, and it happened to Biden, in my view. Biden was elected. We had every reason to believe that he would be this sort of moderate deal-making guy that he'd been when he was in the Senate. Yes, he's always followed sort of the drift of his party, but he'd worked across the aisle with many senators, had Republican friends and so on. We thought that would probably be the kind of president he was. And then something happened. Trump went to Georgia and made a mess of that Senate, those two Senate races down there, Senate. At which point old Biden started getting, his sugar plums dancing in his head, and went out for a very aggressive agenda.
Sure, there were articles about FDR.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was going to be the next FDR.
The next FDR. He was going to out-Obama Obama. Remember that?
Yep.
Well, and that, in my view, that was he would have been, if the Republicans had maintained control of the Senate, first thing that wouldn't have happened was all that wild spending that led to the inflation, or led to a big part of the inflation. And Biden and the country would have been better off because of it. There's always a danger in overreading your mandate. One wonders if Trump will be sober-minded about his.
I think that happened to Biden. Early on, remember, he said he's going to be returned to norms, and then the historians came in and said, no, you could be bigger than FDR. So he says, fine, okay, I'll spend all the money. Then they caused inflation, and now they end up with this result.
Well, he has said that this looks like new President Trump, if he gets to 270, which we expect he will, fairly shortly, yes, exactly, has a moment to bring about the unity that people expected after the last election. Of course, we would be kidding ourselves to think that there won't be a tremendous response to this, tremendous backlash in a lot of corners of the country.
So listen, he's going to get there because Alaska's going to be Republican, but we're not done as far as calling states. There could be even more states that go Trump's way. This could be a massive landslide just by what we're looking at in the polls. Fox News Decision Desk can now project, though, Vice President Harris will win Minnesota, and her running mate Tim Walz serves as the state's governor there. That takes it up to 267 to 226. But again, Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. More Democracy 24 special coverage next.
If you have generalized myasthenia gravis, picture what life could look like with Vyvgart Hytrulo, a subcutaneous injection that takes about 30 to 90
about to explode at Trump headquarters in West Palm Beach. We're waiting, and we are about to hear from the next president of the United States. He will be 45 and 47, and we're waiting for him to join the room. We'll take you there, obviously, as soon as that gets underway. In the meantime, Grady Trimble is in Michigan. Let's get a quick update just outside of Detroit. Hi, Grady.
Hey, Martha. Yeah, people were getting a little bit tired here, but then the call for Pennsylvania was like a jolt of electricity through this room at the Michigan GOP watch party, and the crowd started chanting USA. They started chanting Trump, 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 as it now appears he will be the 47th president of the United States. Now, in addition to Trump and the call for him in Pennsylvania, they're also excited about the possibility that Michigan could be the state that tips him over that magic 270 number. We're also following a very close Senate race here in Michigan, and they're feeling very confident about that as well. Republican candidate Mike Rogers looks like he could cruise to victory with the help of former President Trump. Democratic candidate Alyssa Slotkin, she went out to her crowd at her watch party at around 12:30 tonight and told them to go home and go to sleep, where here they extended this ballroom venue all through the night if they had to, and now it looks like the crowd is fired up as they await former President Trump taking the stage.
Okay, Grady, thank you. It is really important to point out how big the coattails could be tonight. Think about Bernie Moreno in Ohio. was thought dead in the water against Sherrod Brown. He wins. We have right now at this hour, as Grady mentioned, Mike Rogers in Michigan is up. Looks like he is getting closer. We haven't made a call there yet. Havdi in Wisconsin, leading right now. Sam Brown in Nevada is closing in on Jackie Rosen. We're talking about historic numbers here. If all of these dominoes fall, you're talking about a Senate that could be 54-46, 55-45. That wasn't in the cards. That wasn't on anybody's bingo card when you came into election night.
But these candidates have all fought really strong races, and they have all closed in a very strong way. And in fact, many of them were sort of pulling into +5, +6 in just over the last 3 weeks. So it's a fascinating part of this story. Hopefully we'll be able to call some more of those soon.
Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says with these coattails, you could see the House going Republican as well, and that would be a part of this story as well. Let's go back out to Trace Gallagher on the West Coast with his panel. Hey, Trace.
Brett, thank you. Martha, thank you as well. We've got our panel, Steve Hilton, Jody Armour, Kaylee McGee-White, and Jono Caldwell. You're talking to your panel, Brett and Martha, and we were talking to ours, and Kaylee McGee-White was struck by the whole concept that, again, Trump was undercounted. Kaylee.
This is the third consecutive polling miss, and we really need to be asking ourselves, why do they keep getting it wrong? And at this point, it is a choice. Back in 2016, you could argue that you were blindsided, you didn't expect it. You cannot say that anymore. This was predictable from the very start. And I think the reason they keep getting it wrong is because they still don't understand the average Trump voter. They cannot wrap their heads around why so many people support him. And it's because for a long time, actually for the past decade or so, Democrats in power didn't think they needed to. And even worse, they didn't want to. They didn't want to have to stoop down to understand the concerns over immigration, over the economy. And guess what? The American people sent a very clear message tonight that you better start paying attention, and you better start paying attention soon.
We heard a lot of words, demographic. I don't know how many times we heard it, Steve Hilton, but Gianna, you talk about black voters, black male voters especially. We heard it again and again tonight, and you think it's worth talking about.
I think this is a historic night. Black men will now, those who voted for Trump, will be counted as those who helped save America from further decline. I mean, Kamala Harris has tried her best to create these accents like, you better thank a union member, all into this community, even going on Oprah Winfrey's talk show or whatever that was to say, oh, I'll pull out my gun and shoot someone that tries to come into my house. I mean, this has become nonsensical to the point that I don't know if we're looking at Medea runs for president or not. I mean, this is outstanding what has happened from the black male perspective, and I hope the Republican Party takes note.
Yeah, and you talk about young males and younger voters, Jody Armour. You're a law professor at the University of Southern California. You know what young people are geared into. Are you surprised when you see these voter analysis numbers that young voters came out heavy for Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, young voters can sniff out a fraud. They can sniff out somebody who's chameleon-like. She changes her position according to the prevailing winds. They didn't like that. Many across the country, young students said, for me, a red line also is mass atrocities, is collective punishment, is what I see going on in the Middle East, and I see us as complicit in. So they, were saying, I'm not just that enthusiastic. Yeah. And I'm not going to get out.
I got 15 seconds for you, Steve.
I just think when I see this unfold, Trace, it is just a massive victory.
Oh, we got to jump back. Sorry, guys, back to you. We got Trump coming up.
Trace, thank you. The Fox News decision desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States.
That will be complete with a win in Wisconsin, a state that he narrowly lost 4 years ago. He is now the second president in U.S. history to win non-consecutive terms. The first was Grover Cleveland in the late 1800s. Senator J.D. Vance will become the 50th vice president of the United States. Voters expressed deep frustration with the Biden administration, and former President Trump and the future President Trump overperformed in urban areas, particularly with men, proving that the strategy that they doubled and tripled down on over the course of the last few months absolutely succeeded and brought him back to the White House.
47th president of the United States. Former President Trump now defeats Vice President Kamala Harris, who entered this race just over 100 days ago. And for Democrats, they were projecting the possibility of running the table with battleground states. David Plouffe with the Democratic campaign just yesterday. Now it is possible that Donald Trump runs the table with these states and builds on a big landslide electoral win. We don't know where the popular vote is going to finish out going back to the White House, and with him, Britt Hume, will be a lot of changes because he will have been there once and will know what he wants to do.
You know, he often accounts for the fact that he had so much turnover in his first term, in his term as president, by the fact that he didn't really know Washington, and he was new to this realm that he had come to win the presidency, and he promises us that now he knows whom he wants to hire, now he knows the kind of people he wants to have around him. A lot of people are saying that means a lot of very experienced people around Washington will be ruled out, and maybe they will. But it's going to be very interesting to see the kind of people he reaches out to and reaches out for in the days and weeks ahead as he builds his administration.
We're joined by Kayleigh McEnany, Trey Gowdy, and Katie Pavlich. Kayleigh, you've been a part of the last administration. You've seen you can see the joy in all these people's faces. Think about the angst and the, all that this campaign has been through. And now there is the prospect of creating what you want to create in a second administration. Your thoughts, 30,000 feet of this win.
Indictments, 2 assassination attempts, an unlikely come-from-behind victory, and history is made tonight. This is a huge moment, particularly because this is a tectonic shift of the Republican Party. If all of this exit polling is true, you now have black voters, Latino voters, young voters coming in a way that we haven't seen the party bring in a very long time, and that's due to former president, now soon to be current President Trump. And I just want to say this as we wait for him to come out. I remember having a conversation with Ivanka Trump in 2016 about his remarks. And before he went out to give those remarks, he had speech A and speech B. Speech A was a more boisterous Trumpian speech. Speech B was a speech full of unity. And he looked up, Ivanka said, saw the faces of crying Hillary voters. He ripped up the boisterous speech and said he wanted to heal the nation. And the first words he said were an appreciation for Hillary Clinton, for her service to our country. And then he said, now it is time for America to bind the wounds of division. And he said, we are a party of all races, creeds, and religions. That is more true tonight than it was 8 years ago. And I fully expect President Trump right now is maybe ripping up that more boisterous speech and preparing to unite the country.
It's an amazing message.
I hope Kayleigh's right. I hope you're right. And we're gonna get a chance to see here in a minute. Trey Gowdy said something on your show the other day about how one of the things that you hope also is they're a little more prepared this time. They've got a great transition team, and they're going to need it. And I hope that there are a lot of people who want to go in and be helpful.
Trey?
Yeah, I think his transition team has done a wonderful job vetting potential candidates. And to Kayleigh's point, I think a liberated Donald Trump, he's never going to be on the ballot again. This is his last term. I think, Harold, he will surprise his detractors. I think he will be not anything like what his detractors have described him as being now that he is liberated. If I'm wrong, you can hold me to that. But I think he will, a liberated Donald Trump is going to shock his detractors.
He has said that the assassination attempts had an impact on him. We saw him in many ways return to the very rough and tumble style that we've seen in Donald Trump towards the end of this. But now he will take the stage tonight as the next president of the United States, and he will not be able to run again. Yeah. And I think that is another liberating factor potentially for President Trump. Katie.
We'll never underestimate the power of unfinished business. This is a president who has caught lightning in a bottle twice, and the second time around, he now has a MAGA mandate. He will have a Senate that he can use to push through his cabinet appointees, who can work with him on legislation, who could potentially replace a number of justices on the Supreme Court.
He could build a wall.
He could build a wall. He has a working group in Washington, D.C. We'll see what happens with the House, but he also has been working very hard on his transition, get the right people around him. He talks about the lessons he's learned about the first time in the White House. So this is a mandate tonight for him, and I think he should get a lot of credit for doing the work on the ground, going to these states to pull these Senate candidates across the line with him.
Britt, what do you think the analysis is going to be. There's going to be a lot of time to digest all of this. We're focused now on what the incoming president is going to say. What do you think the analysis is going to be on the Democratic Party and what went wrong?
I think it's going to be agonizing. I think it's going to take a little while for consensus to form about what the party needs to do next, or what it did wrong this time. It'll be grudging at first. One can certainly imagine that if the party were smart and shrewd political voices were heeded, that there'd be some major changes in their agenda and their approach in this. And you think of the issue sets that they've tried to run on against this man that failed. They need to reconsider all of that. And I think it'll take a while. Now, our colleague and friend Mark Halperin, who's been very astute this particular cycle, he thinks there's going to be blood in the streets and people are going to be hysterical. I hope not, but it could happen.
Ben?
I am really looking forward to reading some of the stories, probably with a lot of anonymous sources amongst Democrats with the recriminations, and it's going to be fast and furious, and you will have people saying that Joe Biden should have dropped out the day after, not dropped out, but said he was not running for re-election on the day after that midterm in 2022, and either endorsed her or said, let there be a primary, and Dr. Jill Biden, there will be thoughts about her, and I wonder how chilly that White House is going to be for the next 90 days as they try to figure it out.
And let me just say that as Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris will certify the election results on January 6th.
A lot of irony in that moment. Harold, your thoughts?
This is how our country is organized, and it's a great education, I think, for people who had very high passions in this race. There are Democrats who were fervently for Joe Biden. He performed poorly during a debate, and the party switched to Kamala Harris, and there was genuine excitement, I think, built over a period of time. And some of that excitement was an aversion and almost a dislike and a disdain for Donald Trump. But I hope it's a moment that we can all grow from, because if we don't, not in a selfish, partisan way, Democrats won't progress. And I don't think you can fly and soar as a great country unless you have both wings working together. And President Trump, tonight, I'm going to be interested in that tone, Kayla. I was reminded of your words, reminded of what you said as you shared it. I remembered that story, and I hope and pray for the country tonight that President Trump, who has every right to be joyful, every right to celebrate, will give a speech with that tone tonight that in many ways could help him do all of the things that he campaigned on in this campaign.
What does this mean for the never-Trumpers who are Republican and the Lincoln Project people and Bill Kristol and people like that who seem to abandon everything they never previously believed in order to oppose Donald Trump?
Kellyanne?
We'll get to the never-Trumpers soon enough and the hundreds of millions of dollars wasted on them. Look, Donald Trump won this on policy and personality. I don't want to be remiss here. He is talking about energy independence, manufacturing, an economy where everybody is working, no new foreign wars, getting out of the entanglements we currently have, respecting and resourcing law enforcement, border patrol, military. And by the way, friends, we don't get those policies without that personality. What did we hear during the Republican primaries? I want Donald Trump's policies without his personality. Good luck with that. You don't get this strength and this resolve and this toughness. You don't get those policies without that. But I want to say this. It's on this phone that Huma Abedin placed a call 2:30 a.m. on November 9th, 2016. And on the other line was Secretary Clinton to concede the race to Donald Trump on my phone. I handed it to him. And I said to Vice President-elect Mike Pence, make sure Hillary actually concedes. She did. And President Trump was gracious to them, too. They came to the luncheon at the Capitol after the inauguration. The Obamas and the Clintons were there. I was there to see it myself. And then something just changed. The Washington Post said, let's impeach him at noon, 2 minutes after he's inaugurated. Melania wrote about this in her book. So, Harold, I hear you. I hope everybody can unify. But I got to tell you, my friend, I think it starts with your party and not mine.
Fair enough.
They had this guy in a courtroom. He's not an indoor cat. I get it. They have him, and they had him in the courtroom. They have him impeached. They have him, and whether people think that was justified or not, now is a good time to respect the will of the people. Forget about us, the will of the people.
I agree with you. I'm just saying be a gracious winner and let's move the country forward. I agree. And I know you will. That was my only point.
I got a gracious winner today when I talked to him. I really did. He's known for a while. He's going to, I wrote a piece on FoxNews.com October 11th saying he's going to have a narrow landslide. I think he's felt that for a while, but he wanted to go and earn it.
And I even think the people around him have to be gracious too. I think he will. I know him as well as you. I think the people around him can be gracious as well.
That's a different question.
We can always hope.
No, well, that comes from the top.
Once more, I just want to say how much money was spent on this election. $15.9 billion with a bill.
Wow.
B, if you spend $1,000 a day for 2,740 years, that would be $1 billion. It was 16 times that. What has been spent on every race, presidency, the whole deal. $16 billion. And here we are.
What is it, a check you can write to for every American? What did you say?
About $50, if not $40.
But I just want to say, every presidential race has a medium. You know, you go back to television, cable.
Yeah.
This was, in some ways, a podcast experience of a campaign. And those are free to go on podcasts. And you wonder how much of that money really needed to be spent when there's a lot of ways to reach people. But I think it's really interesting and something we'll be talking about a lot in terms of the reach of these endorsements.
You know what I'm struck by? The final,
and Musk and the rest of
the final ads where
they were excellent.
They talked about making America great again, but then ending with the assassination attempt and that fist in the air, the iconic image, and the fight, fight, fight.
Absolutely.
Warrior president.
And it worked.
Yep.
Yeah, toughest son of a gun we ever saw. That was the last note we see in that ad. And I think, for whatever you think of the guy, you got to admire that.
Yeah.
I mean, the adversity he's faced, everything we've seen in other presidencies and other political figures who've gone through all kinds of trouble, are pale in comparison to what he's been put through.
No,
maybe it's time for his enemies to stop it.
Not only that, but the energy that he has is truly amazing. He's the Energizer Bunny. Let's check in with Aisha Hazni, speaking of the Energizer Bunny, at Trump headquarters in West Palm. Aisha, this has been a big night all night long. I'm sure it's really getting fever pitch now.
A big night, Brett and Martha, a long campaign for the former president, for all of us, the press corps that have been following him around now for more than a year. The crowd went absolutely nuts when Fox News called it here, and people were hugging each other, they were high-fiving each other, that people were on FaceTiming. I think they couldn't believe it that this happened tonight and they didn't have to wait days and days and days. We are now awaiting the former president to take the podium. He is here in the building, as is his running mate, now Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. They're backstage. We were told they were going to come out as soon as the election was called, and so now we're just waiting. We asked for a 2-minute warning. I don't know if we're going to get one, but hopefully we will see him soon. And so I just want to add a little bit of perspective, just as a Capitol Hill reporter that's been covering the former president for a while. When I came to Congress 3 years ago, talked privately with many powerful Republicans who did not want to see the former president back in Washington, and then to see the legal battles that he went through and Republicans having to stand up for him. And then he went through the primary process. As Kellyanne Conway just said, he earned it state by state by state, and then came back to Washington in the spring and went to the RNC and claimed the nomination. This is the greatest comeback that I've ever witnessed personally myself. And so I look forward to seeing what he says to the country here tonight and to his supporters. Back to you.
Aisha, thank you. The Harris team is now texting to say Vice President Harris will speak tomorrow, and that will be her response to the election results. That's all we have from the Harris team, which is really strange. I mean, from a PR perspective, Dan?
No, I also just think it's a shame, because I remember when John Kerry did this to George W. Bush in 2004, and you work so hard, and I know that they're disappointed, but you should concede and let your opponent have their election night, and let everybody that's there at Trump, at Mar-a-Lago, where are they? They're in Palm Beach.
They're in West Palm at the convention center.
At the convention center, like, let them have their moment without anyone. Like, I remember Andy Card had to come in and say, well, yes, we know we won, but we have to wait until John Kerry concedes, and then we all had to traipse back in the next morning and wait, and you don't get that moment. I don't think it's right. And
that's not to say there's not going to be a phone call. There could be a phone call tonight, but she's not going to speak publicly.
If there's a phone call, they have to make it public. And then nobody needs to hear from her. So if I were her, I would do it tonight.
I mean, they had that whole setup in front of Howard.
That's all the people were already there.
Everybody was there, and it does feel like you want to just collect the moment and do it the way that people used to.
They were holding out hope. They were holding out hope that the blue wall could somehow come together, but it's going to be a red wall.
90 minutes before that, they were told to go to bed.
I got that text.
90 minutes before all of this, Jen O'Malley Dillon, the Harris campaign person, said, everyone can go to bed and come back tomorrow. So
she didn't even address her own supporters. We want her to call President Trump. She didn't talk to the people who were assembled there for hours for her. It just seems very ungracious. By the way, it ended up being a very bad split screen. You probably couldn't see it in here, but they're filing out, and he's expanding his folks, and they're all excited for him. Look, I think that Kamala Harris is a sign of the times, but I think that Trump's a metaphor for the country. And when he says, we don't surrender, fight, 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 we get back up, I just think I think that's what it is. The other thing I just want to say, maybe it's as a Catholic, maybe it's just as a Trump supporter, maybe it's just as a flawed human being. We all get second chances in this life. Rarely do we get a second chance as big as this one. And I have got to believe the man that I know and that Kayleigh worked with is going to work with a certain alacrity and energy to get things done very quickly. What he can do through executive order, what he could do with the Congress, bringing in the governors. No one gets a second chance this big in their lives and just puts it on the shelf like it's a trophy or a gold star. He's going to use that as a platform for good and undo some of these bad policies, and I think do even better. You know, these celebrities, these athletes, he's got job creators and innovators. He's got Elon Musk and Dana White. He's got people who make stuff, who people say, wow, there's an American success story, and he's going to bring them aboard.
So Vice President Harris has now encountered what is known as the Van Buren curse. It's the failure of the Vice President to get to the presidency. Only two have done it, and that is Mark Van Buren in 1836 and George H.W. Bush in 1988. You know, the question is what the Republican Party looks like now. And Kayleigh, it's a multiracial party, to your point. It's working class, and maybe it's the future. I mean, it's Elon Musk. It is Joe Rogan and podcasts. It is, you know, there's an opportunity here on both parties to realign and change.
There are going to be a lot of conversations that go on to that end. Who is the next standard bearer for president? Is it J.D. Vance? Is he the one who picks up the torch after a 4-year legacy-defining term with the success that Kellyanne's describing? Is it J.D. Vance that picks it up? There's going to be a conversation about ground game. I mean, Kamala Harris over the weekend, they were saying they were knocking 1,000 doors a minute, and I have no reason to doubt that. It was an extraordinary ground game, but do ground games matter as much as podcasts? As much as real, authentic, viral moments like President Trump on the garbage truck, or President Trump at McDonald's, these viral moments that really captured the attention of the nation. And what does the Republican Party look like going forward? It's a broad coalition. It's an exciting coalition, and I think if President Trump manifests that working man agenda, no tax on tips, no limit on credit card interest rate, that's a working man's economic agenda. And if he makes that happen in 4 years, this party may look like this for quite some time.
You know, I'm struck when you're talking about the authenticity part of this, because when I think about him with the French fries at McDonald's and standing up with blood on his face, fight, fight, fight. You can't fabricate. No, consultant can create those moments, Trey. Those are organic and they are authentic. And I think that that is something that Kamala Harris fell really far short on in terms of the authenticity measure.
Yeah, if you had told me that a billionaire from New York would be able to connect with middle America, I would have questioned that. To my friend, the gentleman from Tennessee, autopsies are painful, especially when the patient's still alive. I wonder what the Democrat Party is going to go through in the next weeks and months, because this was a loss that I don't think anyone saw coming, not to this magnitude. So what does the autopsy look like if you're a Democrat? It's painful, but you have to have one. How did you lose, and how did you lose this soundly?
The easiest way to do it for them would be to simply say, if Joe Biden hadn't clung and clung to the job, clung to the nomination, and hidden his condition with a lot of help, they could have had an open nominating process and gotten a more attractive nominee who would have been freer to walk away from Biden policies and would have had a better shot. I mean, I think that's the easiest, simplest solution. But I'm not sure that's where they'll go. But that makes sense.
I don't think you can pass over an African-American female, which is a very loyal constituency for the Democratic Party. I don't see how they could have passed over.
But if he'd left the office and she'd run, she would have been put through a different process and would have had competition, and the whole thing would have been different. You know?
But I mean, Harold, you have a Democratic Party that's pretty old. I mean, you have Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden.
You got Andy Beshear, you got Josh Shapiro, you got Gretchen Whitmer.
That's a different kind of Democrat, and that is not the progressive Democrat that wins in a primary. So is it going to be a change in your party?
Well, we nominated Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who were not from the party. So I think we'll do that. Look, tonight, what happened this evening and what's happened over the last year has been described. There were those on this panel who didn't believe that this resurrection could have occurred. So if this can happen, things are possible in politics if you're willing to change and willing to have courage and determination. And whatever Democrats or anybody want to say about this guy who's been elected our president, he personifies that courage and determination and persistence. So I think Trey, you were asking a serious question, and Britt gave a very serious answer. I think that's going to be part of the answer. And we've got to look long and hard about whether or not the way we campaign sometimes with identity at the end, is that the right way to do it? But before you get there, you got to get a purpose and a message. And we'll get there. And we've got a long history of figuring these things out as a nation, as a party, and we'll figure it out this time.
So the carnage speech got a lot of attention at the inauguration. Do we think that this speech,
I was going way back.
we're actually told that the teleprompters have been removed from the stage, so we could be in for a long haul here. We don't know. But what do you think? You know, he's coming, but there may not be.
I'm saying he off the teleprompter anyway. But he, the other night at the Al Smith dinner, he was upset that there were teleprompters, because he doesn't want to use them.
Right. So, Dana, what does this speech look like?
This one right now?
Yeah.
I think look, I don't know. He's one of the most unpredictable people, too. So I think that's why we're all here. And I've been awake for almost 24 hours now. And I am curious to see. I think I wasn't just thinking about this speech. I'm thinking about the inauguration speech, which would be 8 years since Carnage speech. He has a wide range of the types of speeches that he can give. If you think even within a speech, there's range. If you think about the RNC convention, it started off with like, oh wow, yeah, and then after a while, it was like, wow, he's still talking. It was like so long, and it kind of got off script, and people thought, oh, he kind of lost opportunity. But he didn't. I think if you look at these people who would take off work, drive somewhere in the middle of the night to go and get in line to wait for hours, to then stay at a rally for hours, and part of the things he has done as well is created this camaraderie amongst people so that you could go to a place where you're not afraid to wear your red MAGA hat, and you could say, I'm not the crazy one. I'm not the only one who thinks the way that I do. I can actually have friends, and that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be outreach to the other side. I believe in love thy neighbor. I love all of that. But he has created something special here, so I kind of want him to take a victory lap tonight. I don't think this is necessarily the moment for unity, especially when she won't even concede and give him the night to celebrate.
Yeah. Kellyanne, you were looking at the popular vote. He's still up, and could finish up.
And part of it is because he did run up the totals in places I was looking at, even the rural counties in Pennsylvania. He was going to win them by significant double digits, but he won them that much more. I think running up the totals in Florida, which was a swing state not that long ago, over 1.1 million votes or so. Haley, right, your home state. And this is, look, I think that when the Democrats take a look at this candidacy, it's not going to be that she had too much time, not enough time. She's just a flawed candidate. She doesn't speak well. She doesn't work hard. I'm not being mean or partisan. I don't know why the country would have rewarded this candidate with the big job when she couldn't make the case what she does as vice president that affects our lives in a positive way. She was given that opportunity. I personally would like to thank the women of The View tonight for asking this question, for having her on. Oprah, we see you, and so on and so forth. People who thought they were doing her a favor because they made her something she's not. It's the opposite for Trump. They make him something he's not. Take that one word, take that one line, take that cherry pick this, that, the other. You never get the essence. I go back, does everybody remember 5 years ago, so Laurel and Yanny, or what color dress? You hear Laurel, I hear Yanny. You see the blue dress, I see yellow dress. We were all looking at the same thing. That's the way Donald Trump is in this country. There are people who look exactly the same person, and they see two different vistas. I think it's time that we try to see one. Look, I don't know who said it earlier. I'm a little worried about the reaction of the Democrats and the Kamala people here. I'm very worried. I think that there are a lot of unhinged people across the political spectrum, and we gave very little quarter to how many anti-Kamala voters are out there. I don't want to hear the words racism and sexism. It's eyesight and hearing. We were listening and watching her. And I'm very worried that we've not talked a lot about how violent people may be and angry because she lost. Right. I'm afraid of that.
Right. I mean, I can just imagine thinking about The View, and a week or so ago, they were saying, you know, what is wrong with someone who would vote for him?
Michelle Obama.
And Joe Scarborough saying, you know, we weren't raised like this. Who raised these people? So I can only imagine what tomorrow is going to look like.
You know, I will say when we talk about The View, you know, what comes to mind is we mentioned the carnage speech that President Trump gave at his inauguration, and my mind automatically went to the unity speech that Biden gave, and he mentioned unity a half dozen times. But when you think about what we got over 4 years, there was the garbage comment that didn't come in isolation. There were all kinds of comments. Neanderthal was one of the first words he used to describe those who opposed his COVID edicts. The Mark Cuban comment, he was an official surrogate of the Kamala campaign, and for, you know, as mean as some of President Donald Trump's tweets have been, impeaching the country, half of the country, and that's something he has not done. And so I expect you'll hear a unifying tone, and I expect you're going to see a very successful presidency, and one untethered maybe from some of the things that were holding him back. What comes to mind is an Oval Office meeting that we had where Dr. Fauci was urging him not to open the country. And I watched President Trump fight vociferously, saying people are losing their jobs. We must open the country. He wanted to do it sooner than he did. I think a Donald Trump who goes with his instincts is going to be a Trump that ultimately leads a very successful country in second term.
You know, Martha, Joe Biden mentioned the word unity more in his inaugural address than any president, I think, except one. If he's serious about that, he'll pardon Donald Trump. He'll also pardon his son. And then he'll put pressure on Georgia and New York to end this lawfare. If there is any silver lining tonight, it is that lawfare actually helps the person that you are trying to go after. We need a justice system. The lady needs to wear a blindfold for a reason. We got to stop this prosecution of our political enemies.
I mean, literally, his polls
went up. Will be the Attorney General.
Absolutely.
We need a really solid Attorney General.
John Ratcliffe.
Can do it.
Sorry, John. John, I apologize. Sorry.
There will be a lot of talk about cabinet members, Treasury Secretary, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. You've got Tom Cotton, Mike Pompeo. You have.
Well, you also have a Republican bench. And sometimes, like you were saying, that the Democratic Party is quite old right now. There's not a great bench, although there are some, and especially, but when you take governors out of states, then you leave a hole, and then you have to build up that bench back up. But the Republican bench is pretty strong right now.
There you see Doug Burgum and Vivek Ramaswamy, Steve Wynn, his lovely wife Andrea. So people are there waiting for the former president. Britt would like to know where he is.
He's watching us.
Can we say tonight, though, Harold, that the melting pot still works? That Hispanics, Black Americans, working class Americans, you know, standing up, asking what their government is going to do, asking their government to see them and their concerns, that it works. That this is American democracy in our republic work?
The process works. I think as we get a final account of the numbers and the coalition that President Trump won with this time, I think it'll be one that will be for the history books. President Bush, I think, got 40+% of the Hispanic vote. George Bush, W. Bush, and it looks like President, at least the preliminary numbers suggest that. But as much as we talk about the unconventional aspect of this was conventional also. People believed him. He resonated with voters. He resonated with communities, rural communities, urban communities, suburban communities across the country. And I congratulate him tonight. I didn't want him to win, but I congratulate him on his victory and wish him the best for my country. And I can only hope that the concerns that are articulated by my dear friend Kellyanne, that they're not realized. I hope that my party and my friends, and for that matter, Republicans alike, that we're all able, once we get past the moment here, the 24 hours of excitement and joy and celebration, to understand that what we're really celebrating is the greatest experiment to have ever come to existence. It will celebrate 250 years of its own existence in 2026. So those are my thoughts, brother.
I'm struck by the issue that of abortion, because it was talked about so much, and it was presented as if, you know, you're a woman and you are not going to support her, then you hate all women. They said that husbands, were hateful towards their wives and the women in their lives if they didn't support this candidate. And I think it just goes to show that that kind of, manipulating, it doesn't win.
And narrow casting us based on our gender. I think Kamala Harris was talking to us from the waist down, and I think Donald Trump was talking to us from the waist up as well. That's where my eyes, my ears, my heart, my brain, and my big mouth are. So, I mean, you got to talk to the woman in full. It's as if she doesn't know anything about the economy, or she doesn't care about what's going on in Ukraine or Israel or with Iran, or can't do the math on her grocery bill. It's an insult. Of course people care, but we care about many things. Just as we are not monolithic in life, we're not monolithic thinkers politically. But Martha, something else happened. They put these ballot initiatives on to try to gin up turnout for the Democrat. And they did that, and it kind of backfired. Look at this popular vote. And it backfired. The other thing is, if you've got 10 abortion ballot initiatives, you can vote your conscience on abortion, and you can vote separately or similarly for president. The presidential race was not a proxy for your position on abortion. By the way, somebody sent me the statistics. Over $500 million spent on ads about abortion. $500 million in this country out of the $16 billion Brett is talking about. $37 million for pro-lifers. The rest was the pro-choicers. I mean, it's just an insane amount of money.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about markets tonight and the betting markets. Trey, at this point, it's at about 66% that Republicans hold on to the House as they're ticking down the possibilities, and they look at these coattails with not only the popular vote, but what could be and is shaping up to be an electoral college landslide. Should he control the White House, the Senate, and the House, like he did at the beginning in 2016, the possibilities open to a lot of things.
Yeah, I was there in 2016, and we had everything but an agenda. That mistake will not be made this time. He will deal with the border. He will deal with tax is coming up. There is a plan being formulated by Mike Johnson right now, and John Thune or John Cornyn or whoever becomes the majority leader. The mistakes of 2016, I think we were surprised that he won. I'm not saying he was surprised, but others were surprised. The other thing I will remind you, Brett, when he won in 2016, you recall what he said about Hillary Clinton. She's been through enough. There was a lot of pressure to prosecute her. He said she's been through enough. I wish my Democrat friends would say the same thing about him and say enough is enough. Drop the cases in New York and Georgia. Biden shouldn't wait on Donald Trump to end these federal cases. They should be ended by Joe Biden. If you really want unity, then quit using lawfare to divide the country. Quit using the justice system to try to win political races.
We are still following these Senate races, and as we wait for the former president, by the way, there's Nigel Farage there talking in the crowd there. Britt, this is remarkable in that some of these races were not even suspected to be close, expected to be close. Mike Rogers, he was a long shot at one point.
Good candidate.
In Michigan, good candidate.
Strong candidate.
Former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
Right.
But Sam Brown was left, essentially, he was not going to win.
He was not on anybody's list.
Nope.
Likely switch.
Not getting much money or attention.
No, but I think he's a competent candidate. Once again, we have.
By the way, there's Sam Brown right there, 48.1 to 47.2, 80% in over Jackie Rosen.
How much it renews our understanding that candidate quality matters.
Yep.
In this cycle, Republicans in the Senate races in particular fielded some pretty darn good candidates that gave them a shot in states where Republicans often face an uphill battle. And the fact that, it looks like it won't be just a squeaker, there might be a little margin there for Republicans in the Senate is testament to that.
Let's see what Wisconsin is, guys. Can we put up Havdi in Wisconsin?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President-elect Donald J. Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, and the Trump family, accompanied by Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Second Lady Usha Vance, along with friends and campaign staff. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. An American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you very much. Wow. Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends in this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And We made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have to have. This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again. Oh, we're going to. And in addition to having won the battleground states of North Carolina, I love these places, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, we are now winning in Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska, which would result in us carrying at least 315 electoral votes, but it's much easier doing what the networks did or whoever called it, because there was no other path. There was no other path to victory. We also have won the popular vote. That was great. Very proud of that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And, winning the popular vote was very nice. Very nice, I will tell you. It's a great feeling of love. We have a great feeling of love in this very large room with unbelievable people standing by my side. These people have been incredible. They've made the journey with me, and we're going to make you very happy. We're going to make you very proud of your vote. I hope that you're going to be looking back someday and say that was one of the truly important moments of my life when I voted for this group of people beyond the president, this group of great people. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good. And the Senate races in Montana, Nevada, Texas, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, were all won by the MAGA movement. They helped so much. And in those cases, every one of them, we worked with the senators. They were tough races, and I mean, the number of victories in the Senate was absolutely incredible. And we did tele-rallies. We did tele-rallies with each one of them, and sometimes we did 2 or 3 and it was amazing to look at all of those victories. Nobody expected that, nobody. So I just wanted to thank you very much for that. And you have some great senators and some great new senators. And it also looks like we'll be keeping control of the House of Representatives. And I want to thank Mike Johnson. I think he's doing a terrific job. Terrific job. I want to also thank my beautiful wife, Melania, First Lady. who has the #1 best-selling book in the country. Can you believe that? Oh, no, she's done a great job, works very hard to help people. So I just want to thank her. But I want to thank my whole family, my amazing children, and they are amazing children. Now, we all think our children are amazing. Everybody here thinks their children are amazing, but that's a good thing when you think they are. But Don, Eric, Ivanka, Tiffany, Barron, Laura, Jared, Kimberly, Michael, thank you all. What a help. What a great. My father-in-law, Victor, is tremendous, and we miss very much Melania's mother, Amalia. We miss Amalia, don't we, huh? She would be very happy right now, standing on this stage. She'd be so proud. She was a great woman, that one. Beautiful inside and out. She was a great woman. I want to be the first to congratulate our great, now I can say, Vice President-elect of the United States, J.D. Vance. And his absolutely remarkable and beautiful wife, Usha Vance. And he is a feisty guy, isn't he? You know, I've said, go into the enemy camp, and you know the enemy camp is certain networks, and a lot of people don't like to, sir, do I have to do that? He just goes, okay. Which one, CNN, MSDNC? He'll say, all right, thank you. He really looks forward to it, and then he just goes in and absolutely obliterates them.
Wild. Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America. And under President Trump's leadership, we're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams, for the future of your children. And after the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
Thank you very much. He's turned out to be a good choice. I took a little heat at the beginning, but he was, I knew the brain was a good one, about as good as it gets. And we love the family, and we're going to have a great 4 years, and we're going to turn our country around, make it something very special. It lost that little thing called special. We have to make it so. We're going to make this so great. It's the greatest country and potentially the greatest country in the world by far. And right now, we're going to just work very hard to get all of that back. We're going to make it the best it's ever been. We can do that. If we had to wait longer, I don't know. It was going bad, and it was going bad fast. We're going to have to seal up those borders, and we're going to have to let people come into our country. We want people to come back in, but we have to let them come back in, but they have to come in legally. They have to come in legally. Let me also express my tremendous appreciation for Susie and Chris. The job you did. Susie, come, Susie, come here. Come here, Susie. Chris, come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay sort of in the back. Let me tell you. The ice maiden. We call her the ice maiden. Susie? Come here, Susie. Chris, come here, Chris. Susie likes to stay in the background. She's not in the background. Come here, Susie.
This wasn't expected, but I just want to thank, obviously, President Trump for this journey. It was a great one, and he's a hell of a candidate, and he's going to be a hell of a great 47th president. And this team that we had, the best team, and, of course, even my boss, Susie Wiles, the best. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Susie. Look at her, she's shy. I've never seen her be shy before. Susie, they're great. Everybody up here is great. Everybody up here is very special. But yeah, who did you say? Oh, let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon. Now he is. Now he's an amazing guy. We were sitting together tonight. You know, he spent 2 weeks in Philadelphia and different parts of Pennsylvania campaigning. You know, he sent the rocket up 2 weeks ago. And I saw that rocket, and I saw it coming down. I saw it. It was, when it left, it was beautiful, shiny white. When it came down, it didn't look so pretty. It was going 10,000 miles an hour, and it was burning. I said, what happened to your paint job? He said, we've never made a paint that could withstand that kind of heat. And, but I saw it come down and turn around. And it was, you know, it's like 22 stories tall, by the way. It looks a little smaller than that, but it's big. It came down, and you saw all that fire.